There are places in the galaxy untouched by light, where forgotten powers linger, where even memory itself is not safe. Long before the rise of the Jedi, before the Sith forged their empires, there were the Rakata. These were the masters of the dark side, conquerors of entire worlds. But their greatest weapon was not a solitary fleet, nor a super weapon. It was a plague, but a plague of the mind. A sickness that did not break one's body, but a sickness that shattered minds. A virus that could erase identity, twist reality, and sever entire species from the Force. We have made contact, but they are changed. They do not remember. Their minds fractured, twisted. They are not who they were. We must burn the archives. The mind plague was lost to time, or so we thought. But something stirs in the void. A signal, a memory fragment, an echo, calling, beware the Rakata. Some things should never be remembered. Greetings, Acolytes, and welcome back to our very much unburned archives. The Rakatan Mind Plague is a chilling and a mysterious concept from Star Wars Expanded Universe, specifically tied back to the ancient and the sinister Infinite Empire ruled by the Rakata. This is the worst bioweapon and affliction in all of Star Wars. It was not just a weapon of the dark side, but it was biological, as well as psychological, blending ancient sorcery, Rakatan technology, and a profound violation of one's free will. But let's begin briefly with who the Rakatans were. The Rakata were an ancient, technologically advanced species from the planet of Lehon, also called Rakatan Prime. They ruled the galaxy millennia before the rise of the Republic. At their peak, their society and their infinite empire spanned thousands of worlds. But their power was rooted in the dark side, fueled by their highly advanced technology. The Rakata were known by their force-based hyperdrives, superweapons similar to the Starforge, and their brutal culture of conquest and enslavement. But their mastery of the Force went far beyond raw power. It extended to psychological warfare, mind domination, and this led to a creation, a plague, the Mind Plague. The Mind Plague was not a traditional biological virus. It was a force-infused weapon designed by the Rakata to destabilize and destroy entire enemy populations, attacking the minds and wills of those infected. It functioned on multiple layers, blending psychological corruption, memory erasure, and slow erosion of free will. It had many effects. Amnesia. Victims would experience a gradual memory loss, starting with minor forgetfulness and progressing to full identity erosion. Entire civilizations infected by the plague forgot their own histories, their cultural identities, and even the existence of the Rakata themselves. Then came the next phase, mind control and compliance. The plague would destroy mental defenses, making victims more susceptible to force domination. The Rakatan overseers could exploit this vulnerability, bending infected populations to their will, forcing them into servitude without resistance. It also led to paranoia and mental breakdown. Victims would experience irrational fears, heightened paranoia, and even hallucinations, often seeing visions of shadowy Rakatan figures haunting their thoughts and dreams. Their mental decay would continue and eventually led to self-destruction. Entire societies tearing themselves apart from the inside. And then, the final step, severing force connections. One of the most devastating effects was the plague's ability to sever the victim's connection to the Force. Force-sensitive species and Jedi who became infected would lose their abilities, effectively becoming blind to the Force. But how exactly did it spread? The Mind Plague was not a conventional virus, but a combination of alchemy, sorcery, and Rakatan technology. It could spread in several ways, including ancient artifacts. Certain holocrons, datacrons, and star maps contained dormant fragments of the plague, waiting to infect those that sought ancient Rakatan knowledge. The ancient Rakatan priests could project the plague across entire battlefields as well, corrupting thousands or millions at once. Technological transmissions. The Rakata would encode the plague itself within force-based hyperdrives and energy fields on planets that they had conquered, causing long-term corruption. The role in the fall of the Infinite Empire, though, of the plague is even more interesting than its origins. Ironically, the Mind Plague contributed to the downfall of the Rakata. After centuries of ruling through fear and dark side manipulation, the Rakata were struck by a mysterious backlash of the plague, one they could no longer control. Some theories suggest a Jedi ritual or a rising light side resistance during the pre-Republic era corrupted the plague, turning it back on its creators. Entire Rakata populations became cut off from the Force entirely, a side effect of the plague backfiring. The loss of Force sensitivity rendered their power and technology useless to them, leading to mass collapses of infrastructure and their empire's eventual total collapse. But the legend of the Mind Plague returned. Though the Rakata seemingly vanished from galactic history, echoes of the Mind Plague lingered in the unknown regions, and stories of its resurgence persist. When Revan encountered the ancient Starforged superweapon during the Jedi Civil War, it was discovered that certain data fragments still contained traces of the plague. Some Sith Lords attempted to recover this technology, and were said to have suffered progressive memory decay and insanity after exposure to these ancient archives. Again, information older than the Sith Empire itself. On the temples of Lehon, where the Rakata performed ancient rituals, were rumored to have force-warping fields capable of reactivating the plague in those that dared to explore its depths. It is even said that the Jedi Council sealed off parts of the Lehon temple permanently due to risk of exposure from this plague. The Chiss Ascendancy, while mapping the unknown regions, reportedly encountered dormant Rakatan archives that infected their navigators, causing their memories to fracture and hallucinations. Entire populations were lost to madness, with starships drifting back into Chiss space, with them now being void of all life, and yet the ships fully intact. The Mind Plague was conceived during the height of the Infinite Empire, circa 30,000 BBY, as a biological and a metaphysical weapon. It channeled fear, despair, and mental domination through the Force. But it was terrifying because it was amplified by technology, and could be broadcast to entire star systems. Its basic design was to break the will of entire civilizations, making them compliant with the Rakata. It was developed originally for two primary purposes: to subjugate conquered worlds. The Rakatan's empire was founded on brutal conquest and the enslavement of Force-sensitive species like the Kwa and the Togruta. The plague was a weapon designed to ensure long-term control on populations without the need for any direct military presence. It suppressed cultural identity, weakened any resistance to their rule, and caused mass confusion and forgetfulness. But its second goal is even more sinister: control over Force-sensitive rivals. The Rakata feared rebellion from Force-sensitive slaves and rival species, and the Mind Plague severed connections to the Force, ensuring that entire populations of Force-sensitives like the ancient Jedi were neutralized before any uprising would ever occur. It was around the year 28,000 BBY that the first mass deployment occurred, as the Rakata deployed the Mind Plague during their conquest of the Selenon sector and the Rutan system. The population suffered memory erosion and cultural collapse nearly immediately. But by 25,000 BBY, the rebellion of the slaves happened. Some enslaved species such as the Togruta and the early Jedi began resisting Rakatan control. In response, the Rakata attempted to unleash an even stronger strain of the Mind Plague, targeting Force sensitives individually. This backfired though. Certain Jedi masters used the light side of the Force to reverse engineer a counter ritual, causing the plague to reflect back on the Rakata, though this is a legend and a popular rumor. In the end though, this ultimately led to the collapse of the Infinite Empire, and by 24,000 BBY, the Infinite Empire fully collapsed, reducing what was left to them to scattered, primitive tribes. By 4,000 BBY, Revan discovered the Starforge, and Revan rediscovered the Rakata and the Ancient Plague, with some Sith under Revan even becoming infected. The Mind Plague is one of the galaxy's most insidious weapons, a blend of psychological warfare, biological manipulation, and the dark side. Though the Rakata fell millennia ago, echoes of their forbidden technology and rituals linger in shadows of forgotten worlds, species that have been conquered and destroyed. Beware their ancient ruins. Beware the whispering crystals. For even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, some curses will never die. They only wait. But my friends, what are your thoughts on the Mind Plague, the most terrifying biological weapon in Star Wars in my opinion? And, as a big question, did the Sith come up with anything worse? But as always, my fellow students of the Force and acolytes, may the Force be with you.